Hey, welcome back to my spiritual therapy. It's Miss Mocha, your spiritual therapist. I'm still giving you verses from Leviticus. Right now, I'm on chapter 19. Almost done with the chapter, but this is basically talking about the life and the lessons and the teachings that God had to do for the children of Israel while they were in the wilderness for 40 years once he took them out of Egypt before they got to the land that he promised them. So he had to get them right, get them righteous, get them to become believers, get them to do what he wanted them to do, establish them as a people and give them certain laws and regulations. So this video is going to cover chapter 19 and 20 where it talks about various laws. So before, the one I just did talked about more of the sexual laws and what was forbidden. This one is going to give us some more laws about what God was requiring of the children of Israel while they were in the promised land, which are laws that we should still be abiding by today, especially if he's waking you up to be the children of Israel. Also, anyone that comes, the rest of the nations comes after us, and so they're going to have to adhere to these laws as well. So pretty much these laws are for every one of us now. Um, so yeah, I'll just go ahead and start. The Lord spoke to Moses to speak to the children of Israel to say to them that you should be holy. This is what he's saying. For I, the Lord your God, am holy, so you should be holy too. So basically, he's giving these laws, these regulations for the children of Israel to be holy just as he is once they get into the land that he promised them. So in verse 3, 19 verse 3, it says to fear and respect your mother and your father and to keep God's Sabbaths. And it says, do not turn to idols. So we know that those are the commandments. Honor thy mother and father. No worshiping idols. And then it's verses 5 through 8 talks about how to properly offer a sacrifice of peace offering to the Lord. And then verses 9 to 10 talks about how to properly reap the harvest of your land. So you want to read this because it's definitely laws and rules and regulations that you do need to know. We all need to know. I just didn't write down everything because, people, I expect, and I'm sure God expects you to be reading the Bible for yourself. And so, I just go over it briefly so you can get a bit of an understanding. And when you read it, you be like, oh, okay, yes, this does make sense. Or this, this is what God is saying. So, verse 11 says to do not steal, lie, or deal falsely, or deceive one another. So, this is again lying, stealing. That's one of the 10 commandments. So God reiterates this because of the actions of the people. So he wants his people to be pure and holy as him. So he has to keep saying it over and over again. Don't lie, don't kill, don't steal, all of that. Honor and respect your mother and father, keep my Sabbaths, no idols, all that stuff. He's going to keep saying it over and over again because they were being so disobedient, just as we are today, where we're not following his laws, following his rules exactly. So he's going to keep having messengers like me or anyone else bring it to the attention of people so that we can start following his word again. So he's also said, do not swear by his name falsely or profane his name. Do not defraud or rob your neighbor, nor hold back their wages all night till morning if they've, worked for you that day. So basically, don't be cheating or robbing your neighbor. If they worked for you that day, pay them that day. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind, but fear your God. Do no unrighteousness in judgment. Do not respect the poor or honor the rich or mighty, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor. So judge fairly. Don't, give in to the poor because they're poor and you feel sorry for them and you're going to take their side, or don't favor the rich because they're rich and you're going to take their side. Be just and fair when you give judgment to people. And it says, do not go around being a talebearer, so like a slanderer. And I keep hearing the word slanderer. It keeps coming to my attention. Slanderer. Somebody's out there, making cruel remarks about people, talking about people, dragging their name through the dirt, through the mud. Maybe it's happening to me. That's why I keep hearing it, but I don't care. God knows about it. So if you falsely running my name through the mud, keeping my name in your mouth, talking about me, slandering my name, you need to quit because it's ungodly. You're an unbeliever. It's a sin. Stop it. And it's all lies anyway, so cut it out. I hope ain't nobody believing you if you are doing that. But anyway, yes, don't be a slanderer among people. Do not put your neighbor's life in danger. If you know that their life is in danger, speak up to help them. Don't just sit there and let them get killed and their blood shed, basically, is what it's saying. And then God is saying, do not hate your brother or your fellow Israelite. For us, many of us now, it would be your, fellow black person or your race. Don't hate them in your heart. If you need to rebuke him or her and not suffer sin upon him or her. So if someone is wrong or have wronged you, tell him or her what they did wrong or what they're doing wrong to you, so that you won't be a part of the wrong or you won't be a part of the sin. Okay, and so it says, do not seek revenge or hold grudges against people, but love your neighbors as yourself. Next is keep God's statutes. Do not mate different kinds of animals. Do not plant your fields with different or two kinds of seeds. Do not wear clothing woven with two kinds of materials. So I'm not sure what that's about, but that's what it said in the Bible. So, and for a lot of these laws, I'm sure most of it is true for us today, but there could be some that are outdated. I don't know, but sometimes it seems like it. And so in that instance, we want to just ask God, seek God's wisdom, pray to him. God, is this still true for us today? Like the do not wear clothing woven with two kinds of material. Is that still true for us today? It seems a little silly, but we need to ask God because it says it in his word. The rest of the stuff don't seem silly, but don't plant two different kinds of seeds or don't mate animals, two different kinds of animals. So let's ask God if this is something that you're doing, if this is something that you want to continue to do. You need to ask for God's approval or ask him if you can still do this because it is something in his word that he has said not to do. So I'd rather be safe than sorry to ask permission and let him give you his answer versus just doing it anyway just because you think it's silly or just because you think it's outdated because it's been done or he said it for a long time ago. No, these laws still hold true to us today, but some of them, could be outdated. Law, he, even like from the Old Testament to the New Testament, when you have laws, some, not to say that they changed, like when Jesus came, he added on to some laws, or he said, yes, this is a law, but this is an even greater law, things like that. So not to say that God's word changes, but maybe it is updated. So talk to God about it. That's all I'm gonna say. Talk to God about it. I don't know. I'm just learning like you learning. I'm reading like you reading. I'm studying like you studying. And if God said it in his Old Testament, it's still true for us today, but maybe some, can be updated or can be refigured. I don't know, but talk to God about it if you're doing it and you want to know if it still holds true today. That's all I'm saying. Cause there was one in here. I think we're coming up to it, and I'm like, hold on, God. Now wait a minute. This is me. So is this still true for me today? So, Okay, so then he talks about men sleeping with servant women or like maids or it said slaves in the New International Version, but I hate using that word because people have such a negative um, light on that because of how the black people were slaves. But it's really just talking about being a maid, a servant to someone. So slave is such a harsh word nowadays, but we'll say like servant or maid. And so the verses 20 to 22 talks about a man sleeping with a maid woman. And then verses 23 to 25 talks about entering the land when you do get to the promised land, and the rules for planting fruit trees and eating the fruit. So those verses are pretty good because it tells you how God wouldn't let them eat the fruit until the 5th year that they planted a fruit tree. So I like for that. I don't know if that's still true for us today. Like if we get land and we want to plant fruit trees, do we have to wait till the 5th year to eat it? Is that still true for us today? That's why you pray on that and let God answer you. Are these laws that were in the Old Testament? Like most of them, yes, they're still true today. Like the incest and all that, don't lie or steal or anything like that. But the other laws that don't really hurt anyone or that seem to be only for that specific time, is it still true for our time now? So pray on that and ask God about it, especially if it's something that applies to you or that you're doing. Okay, so verse 26 says, do not eat anything with blood, like bloody meat, nor use enchantments, like divination, nor observe times, so like seek omens or do witchcraft, demonic stuff, fortune telling, all the stuff that is of the devil. So when I was like researching this, because people get a lot of this mixed up when the Bible says divination and don't be doing divination. What he means, from my understanding, is don't do the divination with the people in these foreign lands. God is divine. So God has divine people that he is appointed to do divine things. It's called divination. I think what he's saying is, well, I know what he's saying because this is how he explained it to me, or by putting it in me, is it's not what he has put in place for his people. Is when you go outside of him and you start doing things like the demonic stuff or trying to speak to dead people, or where it says like familiar spirits or fortune telling. No one can tell the future, no one can speak to dead people, things like that. That's demonic stuff. Graveyard worshiping dead stuff, that all that is not of God. God says what he has. He has prophets. He has people that he tells, what's going to happen. So his prophets not really know the future. No one knows when it's going to end or none of that. But he tells people certain things that haven't came yet. So in a sense, they are fortune tellers, but they're gods. So that's different from the demonic fortune telling, if that makes sense. Like, if you read the Bible, you know that God has people who've done miracles, like Moses. He's put miracles in them to have him do signs and wonders, to have people do certain things, or interpret dreams, or speak things that haven't happened yet. Those are God's people. Prophets, prophetess, people like that. That's not what he's talking about when he says enchantments or observing time or familiar spirits, divination. He's talking about the evil things, worshiping the devil, false gods, doing all that wickedness. That's what he's talking about. So I just want to make that clear, because people be like, oh, this and this and this is not of God. No, you have to learn what is of God and what's not of God. God has divination people, or because he's divine, so he's made people who are divine people that hear things and know things and sense things, like me. Like he put stuff in me to know things, to sense things, see things, to, be able to know things without proof, things like that. So it gets real fine with divination. There's godly divination and there's demonic divination. Just like pretty much the whole Bible talks about, either you're righteous or unrighteous, either you're godly or you're not of God, either you're with Jesus or you're of the world. So you got to know which one he's talking about. And when he talks about do not do this type of divination with these people down there, he means a demonic divination, not the divine beings that he has created. Because people will take you on and on and on about how wrong you being and how wrong you're doing, when God has sent you to do this stuff. God has sent you to speak this stuff. So don't be letting people tell you. Just read the Bible for yourself and you will know what's right and what's wrong. Okay? But then number 27 says, do not cut off the sides of your heads or clip the edges of your beard. And I was like, hold on. Oh, wait a minute, God. Because I shaved off the side of my head. But so, like, am I wrong? But then there is, and I think it's in the New Testament. I'm not sure if it's in the New Testament or not, but it's, um, what is it? Ezekiel talks about prophets and how God instructed prophets to shave their heads. So if you see a lot of speakers of the word of God, of the Bible, like me, with their sides shaved, that's because they were told by God to do it. Well, I wasn't told by God. He actually made me do it by taking my hair out, and so I just finished shaving off the rest. But it's because he wanted me to be a prophet. Now, here it says, don't cut off the sides of your heads, nor clip the edges of your beards. I don't know if he's talking about men, women, or what, but I only did one side, and that's because he told me, that's when I came into it, he explained it. Prophets have their heads shaved, like that. So you just have to ask God for the answers. Ask him for what you're trying to know. Like in this instance, I know that I'm not fitting in this verse because I know that he told me I was going to be a prophetess. That's why my head is shaved. So, but if you've shaved your sides of your heads and you're not sure if you're supposed to be a prophet or prophetess, or if you've done wrong, talk to God about it. That's all I can say. Talk to God about it. Okay, so 28 says, do not make any cuts in your flesh for the dead, nor put print marks or tattoos on you. And I know everybody got tattoos, and so that's crazy because they do say don't put print marks on you. Now, I don't know if it's still true for us today, and so talk to God about it, because everybody has, well, I don't have tattoos. None of my body has tattoos, and it wasn't a godly thing. It was because I have eczema and severe skin allergy, so I'm allergic to everything that touch my skin. And so I was always scared that it's gonna give me a bad reaction. Plus my mom was like it would, and I just stayed away from it, because anything that touches my skin, pulls from my skin, goes into my skin, gives me an allergic reaction. So I can't really mess with it. But I would love to have one. I might even still give me a small little one somewhere. But everybody has tattoos, so for this, I don't know. God says it in his word. That's why I am saying go to God and ask him, is it still true for us today? And if it is, and if you got them, just talk to God about it, repent, stop it, or do whatever you need to do to make it right with him. But he does say no marks on the body, which are tattoos, and no cuts of your flesh. So, and I don't know who's cutting their flesh for the dead, but if people are cutting their flesh, God doesn't want that either. It's forbidden. So you just got to go to God about the things that you feel that you're doing or have done, and see if God is still saying this is true for us today, that we shouldn't do these things. The next one is do not prostitute your daughter to cause her to be a whore, or the land will turn to whoredom, which is prostitution, and become full of wickedness. And so I'm pretty sure, that's a law for us today. Like, don't be, who would even do that? You gotta be wicked. Okay, so observe God's Sabbaths in His sanctuary. Keep the Sabbath day holy, making sure you're resting on the Sabbath day and not working, which is Saturdays, not Sundays. I don't know why they say Sundays, go to church and have the Sabbath day. It's not the Sabbath day on Sundays, it is Saturdays. We're not supposed to be working. And it says, do not seek after familiar spirits and wizards to be defiled by them. So again, those familiar spirits, that witchcraft stuff, that's like if you're familiar with. So I think when he says familiar spirits, it's like being familiar with dead people, trying to talk to the dead. You cannot do that. That is demonic. Being a wizard or a magician or whatever you want to call it, trying to do demonic thing is demonic. If God didn't send you to be a prophet, to put these things in you and to know these things and to speak with Him and His angels and His godly spirits, then it's of the devil. It's not of God. So that's why it's so forbidden. You can't think that you can talk to dead people. That's what it means. Not spirits, not godly spirits, not angels, not Jesus, not speaking to them. He's talking about speaking to the dead, or trying to call in the dead, trying to do what only He can do, basically. If you're doing that, then you're of the devil. You're not of God, because God is not calling you to do that. God is not calling you to speak to dead people. He's not calling you to dig up graves or to worship dead people or to worship anything but Him, or to call on anything but Him, to follow anything but Him. So wizards and stuff like that, you're going to be defiled with them. So like ungodly with them. Okay, and then so it talks about the next verse is rising up and standing in the presence of the elderly and honoring and respecting them and fearing and respecting God. And then you do not mistreat foreigners in your land. Verse 33 and 34 says, any foreigners or strangers that lives in your land shall be treated like you were born with them, like they're your own brother and sister, and you should love them as yourself. And I know it's getting dark, but I'm almost done. Let me cut the light on. I'm almost done. And do not use unrighteous judgments when measuring lengths, weights, and quantities. So that's like when they were measuring out gold and silver and food and stuff for people. Even now, I'm sure that's still true for today. Don't cheat people out of what they need, food or money or anything. And keep all of God's statutes and judgments and do them. He is the Lord. So that was chapter 19. I know it was long, but I think we needed to go over it because there's a lot of stuff in there that He says don't do. And like I said, some of the stuff people do so freely, not even realizing that God is saying it's forbidden. So we need to talk to God about it and see, what He wants us to do, how He feels about the stuff that we've already done. If some of these laws, I know most of them, if not all of them, are still true for us today. But if by chance some of them are, can be like edited or updated for us, we got to talk to Him about it, because right now, as it stands, He says all these things in the Old Testament, and they are supposed to stand true for us today. And then Leviticus chapter 20 talks about the punishment of these sins. So the punishment of doing the things in chapter 19, not everything, because He didn't talk about punishment for the tattoos or the cutting of the flesh, or punishment for sleeping with the servant woman or shaving your hair off. He didn't talk about that, but he does talk about a lot of the punishments for most of the things, especially the sex things, the abominations. So yeah, I think everyone should read it. It's a good read because we need to know what God is saying to do, what's forbidden, what we shouldn't do, what severe punishment is, because back in the day, the punishment was death. Is that still true for us today? If so, like, I mean, I'm sure it's still true. If you keep on sinning, you are going to lose your life. God is going to take you out. He's not going to keep letting you disrespect Him like that when He's giving you life. He's just going to take your life away if you're not going to adhere to His rules and His laws and regulations. But what I'm saying is, okay, we've done the wrong. If all of these laws are still true for us today, how can we make it right if we already shaved our head off? If we already have tattoos, if we're already prostitutes or whatever, or not observing the Sabbath day. I like what I think he's saying. I believe we still have time to change and make it right, to go to him, to get what we need to know, to ask for his wisdom and guidance for him, because some sins are bigger than others, like the Ten Commandments are worse than tattoos, or whatever, not keeping the Sabbath. So it's like we need to just stay reading in His Word and stay prayed up and stay knowing exactly what He wants for our lives, so that we're not being sucked in to all the sins or all the forbidden things that He's saying don't do. So I mean, it's the fact of talking with Him.